Hey y'all, hey. Welcome to part 1 of It Ain't About Me. Um where do I start? First and foremost, I'm going to start with God because in the beginning, y'all know the rest. So this last year of my life has been challenging. It's been rewarding, challenging. I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about people around me. I learned a lot about spirituality. I just learned a lot. And I learned from God, and I learned from experiences, or shall I say the places that God placed me. So last year around this time, I moved in with my grandmother. And I would be lying if I said I was excited about it. I would be lying if I said I was all the way on board with it, because I was not. In fact, I was fighting it nail and tooth. But what made it such a difficult task for me not to do is that I knew that God was telling me to do it. And in my experiences, I've learned that when I hear God, or when I know something, when I know what I know what I know. Once you know what you know, you can't unknow. That's just that. So I couldn't sit there and act like I didn't hear him tell me to go there. I couldn't sit there and do something else, because who's to say what the consequence would be? Because we get to make the decision, but ultimately God chooses the consequence. And that's the cost of being disobedient, which is why they say obedience is better than sacrifice, right? Because you never know what you may have to sacrifice. He kept telling me, move in with your grandmother. And the reason why I was moving in the first place is because my landlord decided to go up. What is in my friggin' sunscreen? Excuse me. Hold on. Okay. So the reason why I was moving in the first place is my freaking landlord decided to jack up my rent by $600 at one time. And it was just ridiculous. Like, I understand the cost of living is getting higher. I understand they're going up on taxes and things like that. But to charge somebody an extra $600 in one round is crazy. It's beyond me. And I ended up, I tried to negotiate with the landlord. Hey, let's not make such a big jump. Instead of 600, maybe go up 300, maybe go up 200. I maybe could even understand $400, but half $1,000 is wow. Like, for renting, come on now. And then you wasn't fixing anything around the house. And I was a good tenant. I was the type of tenant where I would ask you, hey, these walls need to be painted. You don't mind if I paint the walls, right? Hey, I saw that, it's getting cold. You haven't done weathering for the house. I've done some research. You could do X, Y, Z, because she didn't know, or they didn't know. I was that type of tenant, so I just didn't understand. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any dogs. The house was, I sat down a lot because I worked from home. I didn't move around a lot. It was a duplex, but it was like a colonial style home. I'm trying to paint the picture for y'all. Colonial style home that had been split in half. So it was high ceilings, beautiful. I love a good high ceiling. In the historical district of where I lived, I loved it. But they wouldn't budge. Hey, this is the price, take it or leave it type thing. And I remember at that time thinking I should leave, but I knew that I didn't have it figured out. So I began to pray on it. And as more time went by, more things started to make sense as to why, when God finally did tell me to go to my grandmother's house, why it was. So I had that situation with the landlord. Then I had someone living with me, who wasn't contributing the way that they should have. And at that particular time in my life, I was working on my writing. So I was working on a couple books, and I had some other projects that I was working on. And this person reassured me that, they would do their part and so on and so forth, which they did not. So instead of them doing their part, simply them just being around became a huge distraction. And at that time in my life, I didn't have the words or the strength, shall I say. I didn't have the strength to I guess you can say, to push them away. So I turned to alcohol. And to suppress the anger and the confusion and the disgust that I had within me. And I've been delivered from all of those things. I'll go ahead and let you know that now before I continue on with the story. So anyways, like I said, yeah, God told me to go to my grandmother's house. So I ended up, packing my things up, putting stuff in storage, going to my grandma's house. Get to my grandmother's house, and yeah, I was at my grandmother's house for 9 days, and on the 9th day, I encountered God. I encountered Jesus, and it blew my mind, because the way in which I encountered him was, I was drinking, and I just remember just feeling, I don't know why, I just felt like everybody was talking about me. You know how family can be, let's be real. Everybody was talking about me, like, oh, April had to come back home. Oh, April's not doing good. Oh, she let that man use her up. I just heard, these are the lies of the enemy, right? These are the things that the enemy is telling me. But my ego, it was my ego that was affected, because I knew that I had the money to get another place, but I also knew that God told me to go to my grandmother's house. So I followed what God told me, because in my past, I have seen the consequences of not being obedient, right? So, like I said, on the 9th day, I was hearing all these different voices or different things that I felt like family and friends were talking about, and I just broke down, because I felt like everything was just going wrong. Like, I had plans to, do this and do that, this project, and I felt like, the enemy has sent that man my way to wreak havoc in my life. And it wasn't right away. It wasn't all of a sudden. It was a little bit here, a little bit there, just gradually building up until I was able to see that person for who they really was, because I couldn't see it on my own. I needed God to reveal, certain things to me, because I couldn't trust myself, right? And I'm not just solely blaming them for everything that went wrong, because they would have never been able to do anything if I didn't allow it, right? If I had loved myself more correctly, or if I had loved God the way that I should have been loving on God. So, I'm trying not to cry. So, I had a whole breakdown. I went to the bathroom, and I just began to cry out to the Lord, like, what, and I didn't care, because everybody could hear me. And I remember my grandmother saying, April, you okay? You might need to go to the hospital. Like, what's wrong? Come out the bath. I wouldn't come out the bathroom. And I was just, crying, like, Jesus, what is this? Why would you send me here to have people chuckle at me and be ridiculed? And like, what? I was through. Why would you allow that man to come back in my life? Why would you allow me to experience this type thing? And I was hurt, and I was crying out. And I can remember having a warm sensation come all over my body. And if you've ever had morphine at a hospital given through your IV, you know that warm sensation that I'm talking about. Well, I felt that from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet, and it was God. I felt him lift. I felt something lift, and I just cried. And then I ended up, going to bed. And I woke up the next day. And immediately when I woke up the next morning, I knew something was different. Because at that time in my life, I smoked Black & Milds. And every morning, I would say that I would reach for a Black & Mild faster than I would thank God for allowing me to wake up that morning. And when I woke up this particular morning, I had no desire for a Black. I was just, I thank you, Jesus. That was the first words that came out of my mouth. And I continue on with my day. And the whole day, I'm looking around, I'm noticing things, like little things, like squirrels and awkward places and, flowers. And I'm just noticing different things. But this is the first day. And I'm like, And for some reason, I felt like I was in a new body. I felt like I was in my body having an outer body experience, right? So that is how I very first encountered God. And so y'all just join me as I continue to tell you about each time along the way from that time up until now that God has spoken to me, God has used me, God has loved on me. And y'all buckle up, because it's going to be an interesting ride. I'll leave it at that until part 2.